Now, Royal Enfield pretty much showed the world that they can make motorcycles that everyone has to stand up and take notice of. The motorcycles that gave them this reputation is the Interceptor 650 and the Continental GT 650. Now, both of these motorcycles were leaps and bounds ahead of any other motorcycle that Royal Enfield has ever made. Now, however, they have taken all of those learnings, that approach, and brought it down to the 350cc segment. Interestingly though, it's not the classic 350 that debuts that approach, but it's a motorcycle that replaces the Thunderbird series of offerings from Royal Enfield. That motorcycle is this. It's called the Meteor 350, and at this point, I've spent about 5 days riding this motorcycle through city, through highway, and here's what I have to say about it. Now let's begin our understanding of the motorcycle by first talking about the design. Now, at first glance, the Meteor 350 might look a little bit similar to the Thunderbird X series of motorcycles that Royal Enfield came out with, but once you see it in flesh, you realize that's really not the case. That's because Royal Enfield says that they have not carried over any part from the Thunderbird motorcycle to the Meteor 350. Everything that you see here is brand spanking new. Now, the thing to note is there are 3 variants on offer. The entry-level variant is called Fireball, the one that sits on top of it is called Stellar, and the topmost variant is called Supernova. That variant is the one that you see right here. It gets these extra chrome bits, the backrest, the fancy wind deflector. You get the idea. This is supposed to give you that big cruiser feel. Now, looks are a subjective matter, so I'll let you decide how you find this motorcycle, but there are some key design elements that I want to bring to your notice. First and foremost, I have to mention that Royal Enfield has upped the standards of the build quality and the quality of materials used. The paint finish is great and it makes the bike feel premium, as in you see where your money has gone. Royal Enfield has taken some interesting design choices too. Like the fuel tank cap has no visible hinge or a key slot when the lid is closed, and that looks really nice. You also get these really old school toggle switches for ignition and the headlamp controls, which take some time getting used to but retain their novelty factor. You also get a USB port under the left switch cluster, which sounds nice, but is actually an ergonomic nightmare, as getting the wire to plug in takes a lot of effort due to lack of space, and only works when the engine is turned on. I would have much rather had an underseat USB port. Coming to the instrument cluster, the one on the left is a semi-digital unit that shows pretty basic information like your odometer, 2 trip meters, a clock, and the gear position indicator. I did miss having a range indicator because, well, the Meteor is built for long distance riding, and for that, knowing your range is really important. This brings us to the second, smaller dial on the right, which is a digital display that Royal Enfield calls as stripper navigation. It is basically a clock, unless you pair this to Royal Enfield's smartphone app via Bluetooth, through which it will show turn-by-turn navigation, and this is immensely helpful. However, it does not show things like messages, music, or call notification, and that's a bit of a bummer. Lastly, the headlamps are halogens and not LEDs, but they have really good throw and offer good visibility at night, and I'd much rather have these than a fancier looking but less effective LED cluster. Now that we have taken a closer look at the motorcycle, the next thing to do is, well, sit on it. And the first thing that you will notice the moment you sit on the Meteor 350 is just how comfortable this motorcycle is. It's a relaxed riding position. It's similar to what you would expect out from a cruiser, but there's nothing extreme about it. Like, you've got forward set foot pegs, but it's not extreme. You're not sitting with your legs stretched out. The handlebar is high up, reaches to the rider, but then again, nothing extreme. And for reference, I am 5'10", and you can see how everything just falls naturally to my height. The next thing to note is the seat height. It's really low, and it lets you plant both of your feet firmly onto the ground. So even shorter riders will not have any problem whatsoever. With that done, let's talk about the riding experience. Like I said, everything that you see on the Meteor is brand new, and that includes a brand new engine and a brand new chassis as well. The engine is a 349cc single-cylinder air-cooled unit that makes 20.2 bhp of power and 27 Nm of torque. It comes with fuel injection, and it also gets a primary balancer shaft, which has helped the engine have far lesser vibrations than the older 350 engine. There are still some vibrations that can be felt on the foot pegs when you lug the engine, but other than that, there's nothing to complain about. More importantly, the thump of the Thunderbird is still there, and that is something Royal Enfield purists will appreciate. As for the performance, the engine now has 1000 RPM more than before thanks to a bigger bore and a shorter stroke, and it now has a much larger spread of power across the RPM band. So much so that you wouldn't really mind and would be instead tempted to actually push the engine to the red line, and even then, there are minimal vibrations. The gearbox is still a 5-speed unit, but it feels more than enough when you are doing highway speeds. And those speeds can be done by the Meteor all day long, as it feels comfortable going over 100 km an hour. Handling has improved too thanks to the specifically built tires, which are wider than before, both front and back, and the new stiff chassis, which has aided handling to a great extent. The suspension setup is bang on as well, and the bike holds its line a lot more confidently despite having a longer wheelbase. And yes, both tires are tubeless. The ground clearance has increased too as compared to the Thunderbird 350. Only thing that I would change though is the seat, as that's a bit too soft and not really meant for long rides. In the city, during daily commutes though, this will do just fine. So to sum up the Meteor 350, well, there are two things that I want to talk about. First is the motorcycle itself, and second is the repercussions of having this as an option in your options of Royal Enfields. Let's start with the bike pick first. You see, this is by itself a really good motorcycle. It is a step up as compared to the older Thunderbird 350 in every single way, and in some respects it has better highway capabilities than even the Interceptor 650 thanks to its riding position. It's pretty much all the bike that you need. It is now refined, well built, and is a proper motorcycle that we can recommend blindly. Now let's come to the repercussions part. You see, the Meteor 350 is the new platform that will underpin the new 350s later on, and this motorcycle basically makes all other 350s feel really old, and not in a very good way, because this is so far ahead once again. So if you're looking to get your hands on a new Royal Enfield, make sure that it is the Meteor 350.